Hello everyone, my name is Anish. I'm a rising 10th grader at Lindbergh High School and my project is optical character recognition, translation, and speech with the Raspberry Pi. So for my third milestone, I added the ability for the program to auto-translate from any language to English, and I tested this out with French and German. And I also added specific responses if the Raspberry Pi ever detected a question mark or an exclamation mark. And when it did do this, it would tell the user that a text was asking a question or had an emphasis on it, respectively. And I also connected a speaker to the Raspberry Pi, so that way it would say the translated words out loud. And I also added a gibberish filter to make sure that if anything gets mistranslated or misread by the Raspberry Pi, the speaker would not say that out loud. Now I will be demoing my project while holding its camera.
Do you want? Do you want? Do you want? Go. K. McDonald's. Go. K. McDonald's. The text is asking a question.
So now for the code. So right here, this is importing all the libraries, and then we go down. Right here, still setting everything up, and yes, this is basically all this is setting things up. And this is essentially a function, and it works in conjunction with this, and it essentially removes punctuation from things. And this is necessary because part of my project is the gibberish filter, and the way that works is checking up words with a word list full of English words. Now the word list does not have punctuation in it. So if words do have punctuation, they must be taken out, otherwise I will think that the word doesn't exist, even though it really does. And then the rest of this is just setting up the camera. Yeah, this is all old code. Yeah, still setting up the camera. And then here, this is where it translates. So essentially uses Google Translate, and yeah, so this is where everything gets translated, and yeah, it's translating the text. And then here, there's this extra like variable named part, and that's necessary because what this does is that if it reads a sentence, of course the sentence is not a single word, but if we don't split this up, it's gonna like try to check whether the entire sentence is a single word and whether the entire sentence is real and it's in English. And of course it won't, because it's an entire sentence. You must check each word at once. So this splits up the sentence into and which will later give us the ability to split up the words. Yeah, this is just making sure that if in case like it's not getting any input, the program won't shut down. And then here, we remove punctuation from the word. This is to lowercase the words because in the word list, all the letters are in lowercase. So if there's any uppercases, they must become lowercase. And here, this is really necessary because what this does is this sets up code that can, with the gibberish filter, we match up things with a word list. Let's say something's a proper noun. It won't exist in that word list. So this right here is actually kind of the base for something that can check if something's a proper noun, and if it is, then it's not gonna, it's still gonna say the word. So here, here's where we use the things that we defined, and we print things out. We set our voice, our accent. I chose Scottish, and then this is where the speaker actually like makes the noise. And here's some extra things just to make everything work. Again, we have another none here in case there is no exclamation mark in this case. The program is not going to shut down. And it says, please pay attention to what the words are saying. And it's the same kind of structure with the question mark. And you set up your accent and saying the text is asking a question. This shows the frame, and this will, just when the program ends, it gets rid of all the windows that pop up. Some major issues that I faced were dealing with outdated code, as there was a lot of online code that was from a few years ago, and it no longer worked. To get around this, I would have to find other code for other libraries that worked, which took a lot of time consuming online research, or I had to just, brute force and try to find how I could modernize the code. I also face issues with there being a lack of online knowledge for certain things. For example, when I was trying to make the speaker work, I needed to use the library eSpeak because it was the only library that I knew for sure could support multiple languages other than English. And I couldn't really find anyone who had working codes for specifically how I wanted to use it. And so after hours of searching online, I was able to find one person on a Raspberry Pi forum who had working code. um, on top of this, I faced huge issues with the gibberish filter because, for one, I had a hard time finding libraries that worked. This was because there was a lack of libraries with a word list containing proper English words. Sometimes words would be nonsensical, or just a string of random characters like AA. Um, and and this is important because I needed to make sure that the text being read matched up with a proper English word. So I needed a real word list. And the other ones I found had very little information on how to actually code for them. Um, and so eventually I found a library called NLTK that had proper words and had information on how to code for it. So I used it, but even then I had issues with the program as it wasn't running properly. After enough attempts at debugging it, though, I realized the issue was that the words in the word list were actually all lowercase. But some of the text that was getting read was actually in uppercase. So I had to add some code to make all the uppercase lowercase, and I faced big issues with being new to Python. Um, I had, which is what the project is in. So I had trouble understanding code at times because of this. I was new to the language pretty much. And for example, when I was checking if words were valid words that should be read out loud, I had to make a program to individually check each word at once in a sentence because you can't check the whole sentence at once. You need to check each individual word to see that it matches up. Um, so I had to change how the code was structured. So I struggled with this even with understanding why it would be structured in the new way that it was, even with explanations from my instructor. So after enough thinking and comprehension, I was able to understand the code and structure and change it and got to work with the new code, and I got it to work. So through my struggles, I've been able to learn more about engineering uh, and what it's really about. So for example, through the large amount of research I've been doing throughout this program, I realized that there is a creative side to engineering. Specifically, it takes creativity to use your previous knowledge to your greatest advantage, because you can't just keep spinning your wheels on something that doesn't work. So it's very necessary to be creative and smart on how you want to do your research and try solutions. I also realized that the small things in engineering really matter. So one time I accidentally deleted a space and I didn't realize it. So when I got my error message, I spent 2 hours debugging other things before I realized the real problem. So I lost 2 hours on that. And in a much more general picture, I've also found out what coding is more about. So in the past, I have really had much more appreciation for physical engineering, like mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, and I never really liked just pure software engineering and just doing that. But after doing a software heavy project, I realized that while I may not like just software, like I said before, I should definitely open my eyes to engineering projects that have a lot of software and maybe not as much hardware. Because I really did enjoy this project. Sure, there was some hardware, there's a speaker, there's a camera, but overall it was mostly coding. And some more technical things I learned were a basic understanding of how to debug software, a base understanding of Python and how the code is structured, and how to properly do research for coding solution. All of these are new skills to me. Finally, for this project, I was able to understand what it really takes to build an engineering project that really challenges you, and what it's like to integrate modifications for it, and about the engineering documentation process. It can often be a grind for the first few, and I really learned about the perseverance it takes to do something like this project. For the documentation process, I saw just how time-consuming yet important it is, and how it's necessary not only for others to see your work and build off of it and use your work, but so you can also do the same with others' work. So that way there's a collective source of online data that people can use. And overall, I would say my experience at Bluestamp has been a very fun and valuable one that has really helped me grow as not just as an engineer, but in my education as well. And it's an experience that I'm very grateful